Marcus Williams had always been the type of man who avoided doctors at all costs. At 34, he prided himself on his strong constitution and rarely took so much as an aspirin for a headache. His wife Sarah constantly nagged him about getting regular checkups, but Marcus brushed off her concerns with his usual charm and stubborn determination. That Tuesday morning in September started like any other, with Marcus rushing through his morning routine to catch the early train to his accounting firm downtown. The pain hit him without warning during his lunch break. Sharp, stabbing sensations radiated from his lower back, wrapping around his side like invisible claws. Marcus doubled over at his desk, clutching his ribs as waves of agony washed over him. His colleague Janet rushed to his side, her face pale, with concern as she watched this strong, healthy man crumble before her eyes. The emergency room at St. Mary's Hospital buzzed with its usual chaos, but Marcus barely noticed the commotion around him. The pain had intensified during the ambulance ride, and he found himself grateful for the morphine drip that finally dulled the crushing sensation in his abdomen. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a sharp-eyed emergency physician, ordered a series of tests after examining Marcus and hearing his symptoms. Hours passed in a blur of blood draws, urine samples, and the claustrophobic tunnel of the CT scanner. Marcus lay on the hospital bed, watching the ceiling tiles and trying to make sense of what was happening to his body. Sarah arrived shortly after receiving the call from Janet, her eyes red from crying and her hands shaking as she gripped his fingers tightly. When Dr. Chen returned with the test results, her expression was puzzled rather than alarmed. She pulled up the CT scan images on the computer screen beside Marcus's bed, pointing to various shadows and shapes that meant nothing to him. The kidney stone they had suspected was nowhere to be found. Instead, something far more mysterious had revealed itself in the grainy black and white images. Marcus stared at the screen as Dr. Chen traced her finger along what should have been his left kidney. The space appeared empty, a dark void where a vital organ should have been functioning. His right kidney looked normal and healthy, perhaps even slightly enlarged, but the left side showed nothing but tissue and blood vessels that seemed to lead nowhere. The silence in the room stretched, uncomfortably as the implications began to sink in. Sarah's grip on his hand tightened, and Marcus could hear her sharp intake of breath. Dr. Chen's professional composure wavered slightly as she struggled to explain what appeared to be medically impossible. Marcus had lived his entire adult life, believing he possessed two functioning kidneys, just like every other healthy person he knew. Medical forms, insurance applications, and casual conversations about organ donation had never prompted him to question this basic assumption about his own body. The revelation that he had been surviving on a single kidney for over 3 decades left him speechless and confused. Dr. Chen ordered additional scans and called in a nephrologist for consultation. The mystery deepened as more sophisticated imaging confirmed the initial findings. Marcus's left kidney was completely absent, with no scarring or evidence of surgical removal. His right kidney had apparently compensated magnificently, growing larger and working harder to maintain his body's delicate chemical balance. The medical team gathered around his bed, discussing theories in hushed tones. Congenital absence was possible but extremely rare, and typically discovered much earlier in life during routine examinations or childhood illnesses. The complete lack of any medical records documenting this condition puzzled everyone involved in his care. As the initial shock wore off, Marcus began to feel a strange mixture of amazement and betrayal. His own body had kept this enormous secret from him, functioning normally while hiding a fundamental difference that should have been obvious to every doctor who had ever examined him. The handful of physical exams he had endured over the years had apparently been too cursory to detect his unique anatomy. Sarah remained by his side throughout the long night, asking questions that none of the medical staff could answer satisfactorily. How could someone live 34 years without knowing they were missing a major organ? Why had no previous doctor noticed this anomaly? Most importantly, what did this mean for Marcus's future health and longevity? The pain that had brought Marcus to the hospital gradually subsided as his body adjusted to the stress and medication. But the emotional impact of this discovery was just beginning to unfold. He found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about his own physical capabilities and wondering what other secrets his body might be hiding from him. The following morning brought a parade of specialists to Marcus's hospital room, each one more intrigued than the last by his unusual case. Dr. Patricia Reeves, the nephrologist, arrived with a thick folder of medical literature and a determined expression. She had spent most of the night researching similar cases, trying to understand how someone could reach adulthood without any awareness of their condition. Marcus watched as Dr. Reeves examined his CT scans with the intensity of a detective studying crime scene evidence. She traced the path of his renal blood vessels, noting how they had adapted to serve only one kidney instead of two. The right kidney had grown to nearly twice the normal size, its tissue dense and highly functional, working overtime to filter his blood and maintain his body's delicate balance. The medical mystery deepened when Dr. Reeves requested Marcus's childhood medical records from his family doctor. Sarah spent hours on the phone, tracking down physicians who had retired or moved away, trying to piece together her husband's medical history. What they discovered was both frustrating and enlightening. Marcus had been an exceptionally healthy child, rarely visiting doctors except for routine vaccinations and the occasional minor injury. His parents, both hard-working immigrants who distrusted the medical establishment, had limited his exposure to healthcare professionals throughout his youth. The few physical examinations on record were brief and focused on immediate concerns rather than comprehensive health assessments. One particularly interesting discovery emerged from his high school athletic records. Marcus had been a star runner on the cross-country team, consistently outperforming teammates who presumably had two fully functioning kidneys. His coach had always praised his remarkable endurance and recovery time, attributing it to superior conditioning and natural talent. Dr. Reeves explained that Marcus's single kidney had likely been working at enhanced capacity his entire life, developing strength and efficiency that most people never achieve with two normal kidneys. His excellent physical condition and athletic abilities had actually been supported by this remarkable organ, not hindered by its absence. The search for answers led the medical team to contact Marcus's parents, who were vacationing in Florida. His mother, Rose, became hysterical when she learned about the missing kidney, convinced that she had somehow failed her son during pregnancy. His father, Antonio, remained skeptical, insisting that the doctors must be mistaken about something so fundamental. Through tearful phone conversations, Marcus's parents revealed details about his birth that had never seemed significant before. He had been born 3 weeks premature after a difficult pregnancy complicated by Rose's high blood pressure. The delivery had been challenging, requiring intervention from multiple specialists, but Marcus had emerged healthy and strong despite his early arrival. Rose remembered that one doctor had mentioned something unusual about the baby's positioning during ultrasounds, but the medical staff had reassured her that everything was developing normally. In the chaos of premature labor and their limited English skills, Antonio and Rose had focused on their son's survival rather than questioning technical details they didn't understand. Dr. Reeves suggested the possibility that Marcus had been born with both kidneys, but had lost one due to an undiagnosed condition during infancy. Kidney atrophy or resorption could occur without obvious symptoms, especially if the remaining kidney was healthy enough to compensate fully. This theory would explain the complete absence of scar tissue or surgical evidence. The emotional weight of these revelations began to affect Marcus in unexpected ways. He found himself analyzing every childhood memory, looking for clues he might have missed about his condition. The stomach aches he had attributed to nervousness before big tests could have been early warning signs. His unusual thirst during hot summer days might have been his kidney working harder than normal. Sarah struggled with feelings of guilt and responsibility, wondering if she should have been more insistent about regular medical checkups. She researched kidney disease obsessively, learning about dialysis procedures and transplant options that might become necessary in the future. The uncertainty about Marcus's long-term prognosis created anxiety that rippled through their entire relationship. Hospital social worker David Martinez visited their room to discuss the psychological impact of Marcus's discovery. He explained that many people experience a form of identity crisis when they learn something fundamental about their bodies that contradicts their lifelong assumptions. The grieving process for a lost sense of normalcy was completely natural and expected. Marcus began to understand that his relationship with his own body had been forever changed by this revelation. The trust he had always felt in his physical capabilities now seemed naive and unfounded. Every twinge or unusual sensation made him wonder if his remaining kidney was beginning to fail, despite medical reassurances that it appeared healthy and strong. As the second day in the hospital drew to a close, Marcus realized that finding answers about his missing kidney was only the beginning of a much longer journey. He would need to completely reshape his understanding of his own health, his family's medical history, and his future planning. The man who had entered the emergency room with a simple pain had emerged as someone fundamentally different, carrying knowledge that would influence every health decision for the rest of his life. Marcus returned home from the hospital with a thick folder of medical instructions and a head full of unanswered questions. The familiar surroundings of his suburban house felt strange and foreign, as if he were seeing everything through the lens of his newfound knowledge. Sarah had taken time off work to help him adjust, but her hovering presence only reminded him of how dramatically their lives had changed in just a few days. The first order of business was establishing care with a nephrologist who could monitor his remaining kidney's function over time. Dr. Reeves had referred him to Dr. James Kumar, a specialist known for his work with unusual kidney conditions. The appointment was scheduled for the following week, giving Marcus time to process the emotional impact of his discovery. During those quiet days at home, Marcus found himself drawn to medical websites and research papers about kidney function. He learned that humans could live completely normal lives with a single kidney, provided that organ remained healthy. Many people donated kidneys to relatives and went on to live full, active lives without any significant limitations. This knowledge provided some comfort, but questions about his specific situation continued to plague him. The mystery of how his kidney had disappeared without leaving any trace consumed his thoughts. Dr. Reeves had mentioned several possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Congenital absence meant he had never developed a left kidney in the womb. Surgical removal would have left obvious scarring that wasn't present in his case. The most disturbing possibility was that his kidney had been removed without his knowledge, or consent. This last theory seemed impossible to Marcus, but Sarah had begun researching cases of organ theft and unauthorized medical procedures. Her late-night internet searches revealed disturbing stories from around the world, including instances of people waking up from routine surgeries to discover missing organs. The thought that someone might have deliberately taken his kidney made Marcus feel violated and vulnerable in ways he had never experienced. To investigate this possibility, Sarah contacted the hospital where Marcus had been born, hoping to obtain detailed birth records and any surgical reports from his infancy. The bureaucratic maze of medical record requests proved frustrating and time-consuming, with multiple departments claiming they couldn't locate files from over 30 years ago. The hospital's patient advocate promised to conduct a thorough search, but warned that many older records had been destroyed or lost during facility renovations. Marcus's parents flew back from Florida to provide support and help piece together their son's early medical history. Rose had kept meticulous baby books with photographs and milestone records, but medical details were sparse. She remembered several visits to pediatricians during Marcus's first year, mostly for routine checkups and vaccinations, but nothing that would have required surgery or overnight hospitalization. Antonio proved to be an unexpected source of information about the family's early years in America. His detailed memory for dates and locations helped Sarah create a timeline of Marcus's childhood medical care. They identified 3 different pediatricians who had treated Marcus before his family settled with Dr. William Stevens, who had been their primary physician throughout Marcus's school years. The search for Dr. Stevens revealed that he had retired 15 years earlier and moved to Arizona. Sarah tracked down his contact information and called to explain their situation. The elderly physician remembered the Williams family fondly and was shocked to learn about Marcus's missing kidney. He promised to search his stored records for any unusual findings or procedures from Marcus's childhood. While waiting for these various investigations to bear fruit, Marcus began to experience phantom sensations in his left side where his kidney should have been. The area felt hollow and strange, as if his body was finally acknowledging the absence it had hidden for so long. Dr. Kumar explained that this was a common psychological response to learning about missing body parts, similar to phantom limb syndrome experienced by amputees. The psychological impact of his discovery created tension in Marcus's marriage that neither he nor Sarah had anticipated. She became hypervigilant about his health, monitoring his fluid intake and insisting on dietary changes that their research suggested might protect his remaining kidney. Marcus felt suffocated by her constant attention and guilty about the worry he was causing his family. Their relationship with friends and extended family also changed as news of Marcus's condition spread. Some people reacted with fascination, asking detailed questions about how he had lived so long without knowing. Others seemed uncomfortable with the topic, as if his condition might somehow be contagious or reflect poorly on their own health. Awareness. Marcus's employer proved surprisingly supportive, allowing him flexible scheduling for medical appointments and offering access to the company's employee assistance program for counseling services. However, he struggled to concentrate on routine accounting tasks when his mind was constantly focused on medical mysteries and potential health risks. The waiting period between his discovery and his first nephrology appointment stretched endlessly, filled with sleepless nights and anxious research sessions. Marcus found himself checking his reflection in mirrors, looking for other signs that his body might be hiding additional secrets from him. The trust he had always felt in his own physical awareness had been shaken to its core. Dr. Kumar's office called to schedule additional tests before their consultation, including sophisticated imaging studies and blood work that would provide a complete picture of his kidney function. The nurse explained that they wanted to establish baseline measurements for future comparison, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were looking for evidence of additional problems. As the day of his nephrology appointment approached, Marcus realized that his life had been permanently divided into 2 distinct periods, before he knew about his missing kidney and after. The innocent confidence he had once felt about his health would never return, replaced by a vigilant awareness of his body's vulnerabilities and mysteries. Dr. Kumar's office buzzed with the quiet efficiency of a specialized medical practice. Marcus sat in the waiting room, nervously flipping through magazines, while Sarah completed insurance paperwork at the reception desk. The sophisticated kidney function tests he had undergone the previous week had left him feeling like a medical specimen, poked and prodded by technicians who seemed more interested in his unusual condition than in him as a person. When Dr. Kumar finally called them into his consultation room, Marcus was struck by the physician's calm, reassuring presence. Unlike the emergency room doctors who had seemed puzzled by his case, Dr. Kumar appeared to have encountered similar mysteries before. His office walls were lined with medical degrees and certificates, but also featured photographs of patients who had overcome various kidney-related challenges. The test results spread across Dr. Kumar's desk painted a remarkably positive picture of Marcus's health. His remaining kidney was functioning at nearly twice the efficiency of a normal organ, with blood filtration rates that exceeded average ranges for people with 2 healthy kidneys. His blood pressure was excellent, his electrolyte levels were perfectly balanced, and there were no signs of the strain or damage that might be expected from an overworked organ. Dr. Kumar explained that Marcus's kidney had undergone a process called compensatory hypertrophy, where the remaining organ grows, larger and more efficient to handle the workload typically shared between two kidneys. This adaptation usually occurs gradually over months or years, suggesting that Marcus had been living with a single kidney for a very long time, possibly since birth or early infancy. The most significant development came when Dr. Kumar shared the results of his own investigation into Marcus's medical history. Through professional connections and medical databases, he had discovered that Marcus's case was not entirely unique. There were documented instances of people living decades without knowledge of missing kidneys, often discovered only during unrelated medical procedures or emergencies. More importantly, Dr. Kumar had managed to locate additional records from Marcus's birth hospital through their medical library archives. These older documents, stored in a different filing system than current records, revealed crucial information that had been overlooked during the initial investigation. The birth records included detailed notes from a neonatal specialist who had been consulted during Marcus's first week of life. According to these newly discovered documents, Marcus had indeed been born with two kidneys, but had developed a severe infection in his left kidney during his second week of life. The condition, called neonatal pyelonephritis, had been life-threatening and required aggressive antibiotic treatment. Despite medical intervention, the infection had caused irreversible damage to the kidney, eventually leading to complete atrophy and resorption of the organ. The medical team at the time had made the decision not to surgically remove the damaged kidney, believing that the infant's body would naturally reabsorb the dead tissue over time. This process, while unusual, was considered safer than subjecting a newborn to major surgery. The right kidney had immediately begun compensating for the loss, growing larger and more efficient as Marcus developed. Rose and Antonio had been informed about their son's condition at the time, but the communication had been complicated by language barriers and the overwhelming stress of having a critically ill newborn. The doctors had assured them that Marcus could live a completely normal life with one healthy kidney and had recommended regular monitoring that somehow never materialized as the family changed physicians multiple times during Marcus's childhood. The revelation that his parents had known about his condition, at least initially, created a complex mix of emotions for Marcus. He felt betrayed by their silence, but also understood the confusion and fear they must have experienced as young immigrants dealing with a medical crisis they barely comprehended. The language barriers and cultural differences had clearly contributed to the breakdown in communication that had left him unaware of his condition for over 3 decades. Sarah's reaction was more straightforward anger directed at the medical system that had failed to maintain continuity of care for a child with a significant health condition. She demanded to know how multiple physicians could have examined Marcus over the years without detecting or documenting his missing kidney. Dr. Kumar acknowledged that this represented a serious failure in medical record-keeping and patient care. Coordination. The discovery of his medical history brought both relief and new concerns for Marcus. Understanding the cause of his missing kidney eliminated the disturbing possibility of organ theft or unauthorized surgery, but raised questions about whether the childhood infection might have left him vulnerable to future kidney problems. Dr. Kumar assured him that his remaining kidney showed no signs of damage or dysfunction, but emphasized the importance of regular monitoring going forward. Armed with this new information, Marcus felt ready to confront his parents about their knowledge of his condition. The conversation would be difficult, but he needed to understand exactly what they had been told 34 years ago and why they had never shared this crucial information with him. The silence that had protected him from worry during his childhood had ultimately created more distress by leaving him completely unprepared for his medical reality. Dr. Kumar scheduled follow-up appointments every 6 months to monitor Marcus's kidney function and overall health. He provided detailed dietary and lifestyle recommendations designed to protect the remaining organ, but emphasized that Marcus could continue living an active, normal life with proper precautions. As they left the medical office, Marcus felt a strange sense of closure about at least part of his medical mystery. Understanding the origin of his condition made it feel less like a betrayal by his own body and more like a triumph of human resilience. His kidney had been working heroically his entire life, compensating for a loss that occurred before he could even form memories. The drive home was quiet, as both Marcus and Sarah processed the information they had received. The medical mystery had been solved, but the emotional and family relationships affected by decades of silence would require more time and effort to heal. The confrontation with his parents took place in Marcus's living room on a gray Saturday afternoon, with Rose and Antonio sitting stiffly on the couch, while their son paced nervously near the fireplace. Sarah had offered to leave them alone for this conversation, but Marcus insisted she stay for moral support. The tension in the room was palpable as he began to share what Dr. Kumar had discovered about his infant kidney infection. Rose's reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. She collapsed into tears, her hands covering her face as 34 years of suppressed guilt and fear came pouring out. Through broken English mixed with Spanish, she tried to explain the terror she had felt watching her tiny baby fight for his life in the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit. The doctors had spoken in medical terms she couldn't understand, using interpreters who seemed to rush through explanations about infections and organ damage. Antonio's response was more defensive, his voice rising as he tried to justify their decision to remain silent about Marcus's condition. He explained that the doctors had assured them their son could live normally with one kidney, so they had decided not to burden him with knowledge about a problem that couldn't be changed. In their minds, protecting Marcus from worry had been an act of love, not deception. The language barrier that had complicated his initial medical care had also affected his parents' understanding of the long-term implications of his condition. They had genuinely believed that since Marcus was healthy and active, there was no reason to discuss something that seemed to have no impact on his daily life. The concept of preventive care and regular monitoring for chronic conditions was foreign to them, shaped by their experiences in a country where medical care was sought only when someone was actively sick. Rose pulled out a small wooden box from her purse, revealing faded hospital bracelets and medical forms written in Spanish that she had kept since Marcus's birth. These documents, which she had never shown to anyone, contained details about his treatment that she had been unable to fully comprehend at the time. Seeing his infant hospital identification bracelet with his tiny footprints pressed in purple ink made the reality of his early medical crisis more tangible and emotionally devastating. Marcus struggled with conflicting emotions as he listened to his parents' explanations. Part of him understood their motivations and recognized the impossible position they had been placed in as young, frightened immigrants dealing with a medical system they didn't fully comprehend. Another part of him felt angry about the decades of medical appointments where he had provided incomplete health histories, potentially putting himself at risk. The revelation about his childhood illness also explained some behaviors and attitudes he had observed in his parents over the years. Rose's tendency to become anxious whenever he mentioned minor health problems, Antonio's suspicious attitude toward doctors and hospitals, and their reluctance to discuss family medical history all made sense in the context of their traumatic experience with his infant care. Sarah, who had been quietly listening to the family discussion, finally spoke up to express her own frustration with the situation. As Marcus's wife, she felt responsible for his health and safety, but had been making decisions based on incomplete information about his medical risks. Her anger was directed less at his parents personally and more at the systemic failures that had allowed crucial health information to be lost for over 3 decades. The conversation revealed additional details about Marcus's early years that took on new significance in light of his kidney condition. Rose remembered that he had been a very thirsty child, constantly asking for water and juice, which she now realized might have been his remaining kidney working harder to maintain proper hydration. His exceptional athletic performance in high school might have been partly due to his kidney's enhanced efficiency at filtering waste products from his bloodstream. Antonio shared memories of watching Marcus play sports with a mixture of pride and terror, never knowing whether physical exertion might somehow damage his remaining kidney. He had encouraged his son's athletic pursuits while privately worrying about every tackle in football and every mile run in cross-country competitions. The stress of keeping this secret while watching Marcus live an active physical life had taken an emotional toll on both parents. As the afternoon wore on, the family began to work through the complex emotions surrounding decades of medical secrecy. Marcus started to understand that his parents' silence had been motivated by love and protection, even though it had ultimately created more problems than it solved. Their fear of burdening him with worry about a condition he couldn't control had been genuine, even if misguided. Rose asked for forgiveness with the intensity of someone who had been carrying guilt for 34 years. She explained that she had prayed for Marcus's health every single day since his infant illness, lighting candles at church and making promises to God about protecting her son from further harm. Her faith had sustained her through the years of keeping this secret, but had also amplified her guilt about withholding information that might have been important for his care. The family discussion gradually shifted from anger and recrimination toward understanding and healing. Marcus began to appreciate the impossible choices his parents had faced as young immigrants, navigating a complex medical system while dealing with their own fears and limitations. Their decision to remain silent had been wrong, but it had been made with good intentions and understandable motivations. By evening, the family had reached a tentative peace about the past, while acknowledging that rebuilding trust would take time. Marcus agreed to include his parents in future medical appointments so they could better understand his ongoing care needs. Rose and Antonio promised to share any other health information they might have withheld, no matter how minor it seemed. The day ended with Marcus feeling emotionally drained but somehow lighter, as if a burden he hadn't fully recognized had been lifted from his shoulders. Understanding the complete story of his missing kidney, including his parents' role in keeping it secret, allowed him to begin processing the complex emotions surrounding his discovery and moving forward with a more complete understanding of his medical history. 6 months after his shocking discovery, Marcus sat in Dr. Kumar's office for his regular follow-up appointment, feeling more confident and informed than he had since the day he learned about his missing kidney. The test results spread across the desk showed that his remaining kidney continued to function at exceptional levels, with no signs of stress or deterioration, despite decades of single-handed operation. The psychological adjustment to his new medical reality had been gradual but steady. Marcus had worked with a counselor specializing in medical trauma to process the complex emotions surrounding his discovery and his family's decades-long silence. The therapy had helped him understand that his anger toward his parents was natural and justified, while also allowing him to appreciate their impossible position as young immigrants facing a medical crisis they couldn't fully comprehend. Sarah had also participated in counseling sessions, working through her own feelings of betrayal and responsibility. Her initial hypervigilance about Marcus's health had gradually relaxed as she learned more about kidney function and the excellent prognosis for people living with a single healthy organ. She still monitored his fluid intake and encouraged healthy lifestyle choices, but no longer panicked at every minor symptom or discomfort. The relationship with his parents had slowly healed through a series of difficult but necessary conversations. Rose and Antonio had accompanied Marcus to several medical appointments, asking questions they should have posed 34 years earlier, and finally understanding the long-term implications of their son's condition. Their relief at learning that Marcus could live a completely normal life was profound and visible. Marcus had also taken practical steps to protect his health and ensure that his medical history would never again be lost or overlooked. He carried detailed medical records with him at all times, including copies of his imaging studies and Dr. Kumar's comprehensive care plan. His new primary care physician had been thoroughly briefed about his condition and was monitoring him closely for any signs of kidney problems. The dietary and lifestyle changes recommended by Dr. Kumar had become second nature to Marcus, though. They were less restrictive than he had initially feared. He maintained excellent hydration, avoided medications that could damage his kidney, and followed a diet moderate in protein and sodium. His exercise routine continued much as before, with the added satisfaction of knowing that his remarkable endurance had been supported by his kidney's exceptional efficiency. Perhaps most surprisingly, Marcus had discovered a sense of pride in his body's remarkable adaptation to his childhood illness. His kidney had been working heroically his entire life, growing larger and more efficient to compensate for the loss of its partner. The athletic achievements he had always attributed to hard work and natural talent had actually been supported by this amazing organ's exceptional performance. The experience had also deepened his appreciation for regular medical care and preventive health measures. Marcus now maintained relationships with multiple specialists, underwent comprehensive annual physical examinations, and stayed current with recommended screenings and vaccinations. The man who had once avoided doctors at all costs had become an engaged and informed patient. His story had spread through his community and workplace, generating interest and concern from friends and colleagues who were amazed by his situation. Marcus found himself becoming an unofficial advocate for thorough medical record-keeping and regular health screenings. Several people had been inspired by his story to schedule long-overdue physical examinations or to research their own family medical histories more thoroughly. The relationship between Marcus and Sarah had emerged stronger from the crisis, though not without some permanent changes. They had learned to communicate more openly about health concerns and to support each other through medical uncertainties. Sarah's nursing background, which had initially made her more anxious about Marcus's condition, eventually became an asset as she helped him navigate the complex world of specialist care and medical decision-making. Dr. Kumar remained cautiously optimistic about Marcus's long-term prognosis, emphasizing that people with single kidneys could live completely normal lifespans with proper care and monitoring. The regular appointments had become routine rather than anxiety-provoking, focusing on maintaining his excellent kidney function rather than searching for problems or complications. Marcus had also connected with online support groups for people living with single kidneys, finding comfort in sharing experiences with others who understood the unique challenges and concerns of his condition. Many group members had discovered their situations in similarly unexpected ways, and their stories provided both perspective and practical advice for managing life with one kidney. The mystery of his missing kidney had been completely solved, but the experience had taught Marcus valuable lessons about the importance of medical advocacy, family communication, and personal health awareness. He no longer took his body's remarkable capabilities for granted, instead viewing his continued health as a collaboration between his exceptional kidney, his medical team, and his own commitment to self-care. Looking back on the terrifying day, when he had first learned about his missing kidney, Marcus could now see it as a turning point that had ultimately improved his life in unexpected ways. The shock and fear had given way to knowledge, preparation, and a deeper appreciation for his body's remarkable resilience. His kidney had been protecting him his entire life, and now he was finally in a position to return the favor through informed, proactive healthcare and lifestyle choices. The man who had entered the emergency room believing he was completely healthy had emerged as someone with a profound understanding of his own medical needs and limitations. The journey from ignorance to knowledge had been difficult and sometimes painful, but had ultimately empowered him to take control of his health in ways he never could have imagined.